Hello again, everyone. This is Abra, and I'm back to give my 2 cents on Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. The movie was originally announced in 2008, and it was supposed to release around 2013. But unfortunately, the very nature of the movie caused studios to kind of hesitate to back it because this movie is a stop-motion animation movie, and it also has some musical numbers in it. But I hesitate to call it a musical because the musical numbers don't dominate the whole film. There's some key moments, emotional moments, where they have some songs that come on. I guess that could be seen as working against the film as well because, unfortunately, musicals have kind of gone down in favor unless they're doing, trendy pop music. It's not going to be something that people are going to run out to go see. So a lot of studios avoided it. This project was very special to Guillermo del Toro. For him, it was very personal and reminded him of his relationship with his father. And so he kept trying to lobby to get this made, and it was picked up by Netflix. It's not typically a movie that I would have gravitated to. Well, I can't say I'm not really into the stop motion animation, but it just wouldn't have been one of those movies that I would have looked at and immediately thought, yeah, I want to watch this. I have to say that I was really pleasantly surprised by the movie. And this is kind of strange to say, but it has a lot more heart than a lot of the live action movies have today, and certainly a lot of the CGI movies have today. This movie, I know it's not going to break records or anything like that. It's not going to ever do anything like, say, an Avatar movie would do. But it's a shame. I think a lot of people would really appreciate the movie as I did. A lot of people, when they think of Pinocchio, they think of the 1940 Disney animated film. The Disney take on movies tends to be a little more whimsical, lighthearted. This version, they refer to it as a dark fantasy, but I hesitate to call it a dark fantasy because, well, it does deal with topics that would typically be considered a little more weighty. It doesn't feel weighed down in darkness. In this version, it's a little bit different from the version of Pinocchio that most of us are familiar with, in that this version sees Geppetto, he has a young son. His son unfortunately dies. This just devastates Geppetto after he was just a shell of a man. What he did to kind of honor his son, when his son was buried, he took a little pine cone that his son had found and collected one day, and he planted it. And eventually over the years, you see the pine cone grow into a pine tree. And every day Geppetto visits the grave, and one day he's just feeling a particular bout of despair, and he's drunk and he gets upset. And in a fit of anger, he feels like God has turned his back on him. He chops down the pine tree and he says, well, I'll make my own son. And he ends up carving out Pinocchio. Because Geppetto was drunk, Pinocchio is not finished. He's a little bit asymmetrically. He has an ear on one side, not on the other. And there was this wood sprite that takes pity on Geppetto because she sees that he was a good man and she wants to do something kind for him. So she decides to make Pinocchio come to life. It was kind of interesting, go back a little bit, the character of the cricket, voiced by Ewan McGregor, and he does a great job. I love the dry humor.
Oh, the pain! Life is such hideous pain.
He decided to make a home inside the tree, and so when Geppetto chops down the pine tree, this leaves Sebastian J. Cricket homeless. And so he ends up staying. There's a little kind of notch where your heart would be, and that's where Sebastian still kind of lives. And so the wood sprite charges Sebastian with being the conscience of Pinocchio and kind of guide him and show him how to be a good person. And if he does that, then she will grant him one wish. So there are other familiar elements. Of course, when Pinocchio tells a lie, his nose grows, and that comes into play a number of times in the movie. The end of the film, it's very touching. I don't want to give anything away because I'm really hoping you guys watch this. There are some moments about sacrifice and the relationship between the father and son, and how sometimes there is tension there. Ultimately, there's still love between the father and son. and Pinocchio, who was so naive and innocent at first, because when he's first granted life, everything is just new to him. He has to learn responsibility, he has to learn about telling the truth, he has to learn about what a burden is, and there are all these little lessons. And while he's learning a lot, he actually ends up teaching a lot of the other characters a lot about humanity and kindness and just about themselves. And the end of the movie, Guillermo's spin on it, it was a little bit eye-watering. The voice acting was really, really top-notch. Everyone did a great job in the role. There are a number of voice actors who ended up lending their voices to this movie. You have Geppetto, who is played by David Bradley, a great actor. He brings a lot of emotion to the character of Geppetto. Cate Blanchett, she has a role, but it's not a role that you typically think of someone of her stature as taking. During the circus part of it, where Pinocchio, he kind of goes astray, one of the guys that runs a puppet show in the circus, he's played by Christoph Waltz. You'll know him from Inglourious Bastards as that chilling Nazi character. But Cate Blanchett plays his companion who helps him do the puppet shows. It happens to be a monkey. So all she really does throughout the entire film is make monkey noises, and it's just humorous. But Cate Blanchett believes in Guillermo del Toro and respects him so much that she was just quite keen on just having any part in one of his films. The way that Del Toro made the film, it's a very beautiful film. They decided to use not only animatronics kind of underneath, I guess like a maybe latex or maybe a combination of latex and the clay, but they did that in addition to the swap out heads, so they could swap out the different faces. The movements, while you can still tell that it's kind of stop motion, doesn't have the fluid movements like you would see in a live action production. It's still very smooth, and the different elements, you have the puppets, you have models of the sets that they spent a lot of time making. There's so much detail involved in that. And then you have sections where there will be, some animated green screen, but just to add a little extra flair, in the background, and also to remove the little pieces that are holding up the puppets. But it's just a beautiful work of art, and that appeared to be almost 3D, not to where it's jumping at you, but almost where you could feel that the environment that these puppets were interacting in were like it was almost a living, breathing world, and I was really impressed by that. It looked really good. It's just a really cute film. I definitely recommend it. It's a shame. This movie had a budget of $35 million, and I think so far it's only, it hasn't even broken $200,000 worldwide, and it's just a crime. Like I said, I can understand that this type of film isn't for everybody, but just taking into account the man hours, the amount of love, the attention to detail, and the fact that Guillermo del Toro lobbied so hard to see this movie come to fruition, it's a real crime. I wish more people would take the time to watch it, and especially the behind the scenes little featurette. I think you'll enjoy that a lot. So that's my 2 cents on Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. It is currently still streaming on Netflix. Please check it out. It is just a gorgeous film. It's a crime that this movie has not made some more money. I hope it gets more viewers. It really deserves more eyes on this project. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, this is Abra. Take care.